happy to be able to share some of what Abilities does and give you all just a little bit more encouragement as your day unfolds and your week unfolds. So I'm going to jump over and show the presentation, and I'll go back and forth from slides to me. So let's see here. So moving forward is kind of our mantra when working with families. And Abilities Workshop works with 3 different groups in all, I would say. We have parents, pastors, and teachers that we work with. Parents obviously is the one closest to my heart. Our story starts with my daughter being diagnosed with autism when she was 3. And so as a special needs parent, I pretty well understand the emotional roller coaster that you go on when you're navigating it and you're trying to figure it out. So when I say that Abilities works with all these different areas, it's because our goal is to help children be their absolute best. And if we have parents that are fighting for them, and we have pastors and churches that are helping them, and we have teachers that understand them, then they're well on their way to being their best person that they can be. And that's the ultimate goal. Working with parents is uniquely wonderful because I was this person that daydreamt a bit about workshops. As odd as that may sound, I did that. When we were diagnosed, there was just such a flood of information that was out there, and you didn't know where to start, and you certainly didn't know how to prioritize it or understand all the acronyms that were associated with it. And it's a lot, and you're still emotionally reeling from hearing that your child's going to have additional challenges set before them and set before your family. So it's a tough place to be. Our parent workshop series, the one that I call our boot camp series, is called Moving Forward. And I feel like it is very appropriately named, because once you're able to get your bearings and you catch your breath after hearing a doctor tell you all of the limitations that your child is going to have, or at least that's how it was for us. You want to move forward. You want to see what the next steps are and how to conquer some of it. So when I say moving forward, let's see, I'm trying to get to work. Screen, there we go. So how did we get here? Like I said, Lindsay was diagnosed at age 3, and we had a really good experience with our Early Steps program here locally in Central Florida. They had called it globally developmentally delayed. And then when she got her formal diagnosis of autism, we knew that there was something already wrong. This was 10 months, 12 months later. But we weren't expecting the bedside manner of a doctor to tell us all of the things she would never be able to do. She's never going to be able to talk. She's never going to be able to have friends. She's never going to be able to seem to be the theme of a good 5 or 6 minutes. And it's a pretty terrible feeling when you're looking at a 3-year-old wondering, how their future could be so bleak. But we were really fortunate. God had his hand in our life all along, and he's continued to. But our fortune changed pretty abruptly. We had a terrible, terrible day on that diagnosis day. And then the very next day, I had a lady in my office that had been interviewing for something that she was far overqualified for. But we got chatty, and I learned that not only did she have a child that was doing quite well on the autism spectrum, but she'd written a book about it. And so I had 2 hours that she and I just chit-chatted, and I started learning at her feet, understanding some of the things that she had done to help her son and his situation improve. 24 hours is a very short time. Like, that's an incredible amount of time that I was in the dark wondering what to do, and then God placed somebody in our life. And so in my mind, it's always been a pay it forward moment. So if we were going to have success from this, and we were going to see Lindsay's improvement, and my goodness, she really is an inspirational story, and she has gone so far. She does talk, she does have friends, she's played soccer, she dances hip hop, she's incredibly funny. So, we were told to love her for who she was, but we are getting to see her blossom and develop and do things. And if we were going to have that experience because someone was kind enough to tell us, then it's our obligation to this community to tell it to other people so that they can try to have those same experiences and have that same hope, that same trajectory if they can. So we've tried to pay it forward. And I know that this is somewhat monotonous. I just want to tell you a little bit of why we're where we are. So what we do, our workshops, and we do them old school. And what I mean by that is that I like the idea of meeting in person. I know that we do a lot of things virtually, and perhaps we'll have to do workshops virtually at some point for different populations, and I understand that. But the idea of everybody connecting in the same room, everybody showing up and making friends with other families that are in the same place and at the same time, that's just powerful. It's really fantastic to see those friendships begin and start to flourish. It's impactful to look around a room and see not only moms and dads, but you see single moms and you see single dads, and you see people that are just showing up to fight for their kids. They just want to help their kids be their absolute best, and they want to understand it and learn. And it's a really wonderful feeling to be in that atmosphere. And so when people come in, and I keep talking about this workshop, I'll give you more details. So what we do is we do a boot camp almost. So it's 4 nights that you sign up for. You get a workbook, and it's usually Thursday nights. So it might be 4 Thursday nights in a month. And you show up, and the first night's talking about knowing hope and understanding how to measure their gains and understanding some of your local resources right around you. Then it moves on to things like IEPs and scholarships, and how do you find funding, and what do you do with different school scenarios, onwards to the medical insights. We'll have different, and all of the people that speak are experts in their arena. They really understand these things. So we'll have really fantastic doctor that'll speak about medical insights, and then we'll have some great therapists talk about all the different therapy options that are out there. And before the series is complete, we will have our self-care night, where we talk about how you have to take care of yourself along the way, or otherwise you're going to be struggling even more so, and what building a circle of support looks like. Because none of this is quick fix stuff. None of us are going to get through it in 2 weeks and be like, oh well, we're completely good, we're ready to go. So you have to be able to understand it in its entirety, and that's kind of boot camp. So finding the resources is important, and people come and they understand that, and it starts setting them to understand more and more. I think a big one is like acronyms. It was really scary to have acronyms when we started. I always felt like I was looking up one word in my phone while I was reading something online, and it's just terribly challenging. So we try to give you the beginnings of it, and we give you the workbook that comes with it, and all of the points in the right direction. Excuse me. So our newest stuff that's going to be happening, which is incredibly exciting, is that in July, we're going to start a podcast series. It's completely free. You just have to register in order to hear it, but we're going to be talking to the leading doctors all around the world. So these are the doctors that you would go to conferences to hear speak and do keynote speaking. They're going to be doing casual conversations with me on the phone. It's going to be an opportunity where I just put on my my hat as a special needs mom, and I have a really calm conversation with them and ask them to break things down into words that I can understand. I hope that this is something that speaks to everyone else as well. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute so that I can talk to you guys more directly. But the goal in all of this is to have workshops that people can come to. We're going to be expanding those workshops this fall. They're going to be what we call a master series that'll be coming soon. So families that have graduated from moving forward, or they've gotten all the information that they need from that for the time being, then they might want to dive a little bit deeper into perhaps a night that's talking about anxiety. And we have a doctor to talk about what anxiety does to us and how that functions. And then we have a couple different people that might be a local resource that can help you fix whatever issues you're running into. So, and by fix, I use that term loosely, but it's the idea of maybe having someone with horse therapy that can talk about how that's advantageous to the kids, or you talk about different adventures or different ways to help build somebody's confidence so that it loosens that anxiety when a child's faced with that obstacle. So it's going to be a fun opportunity for people to do continued ed. So if you've learned anything so far, we have boot camp, and then we're going to be moving into continuing education. But the podcast is going to be exciting. It's going to be one of these things that I think will be wildly educational for me but especially for any family that's listening. And we're asking the community to get engaged in that by registering, because it's a private podcast. So, come over, you go to Abilities Workshop. I'll show you in a second where you can register, but you register for it. And then once you're registered, you have access to being able to hear it and hear all of the different episodes. But more importantly, you have the opportunity to ask questions. So we'll be advertising who the doctor is going to be. We're going to be talking to 1 or 2 doctors every month, and we'll also be talking to families. But if it's a doctor that might be on your radar, of somebody, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to hear him talk or her talk, and especially about my child, this scenario, you have a chance to, put that question in there so that we can make sure that we ask it for you. Like I said, it's all a pay it forward type of moment. This is what we do. The registration process is pretty simple. I guess I should show that to you now. Hold on just a second. Sharing. Let's see if it's my next one. There it is. So in the event that you want to register for that, the way that you would find that is by going to abilitiesworkshop.com. And then there's going to be this podcast tab at the top, and you click on it, and you drop down and you register. And it's pretty straightforward. It's just that we're wanting to make sure that anybody that is a part of it is able to ask those questions and be able to be notified when there's a new episode coming out. The part that I think is wildly fun and exciting, more so than anything else, is going to be the fact that we're going to be talking to some different parents along the way that have had their own inspirational stories, and the inspiration that they provide is going to knock your socks off. They just are pillars of the community. They've continued to do good in the special needs world, but they've had just wild success with their child, having overcome different obstacles. I feel like when somebody's first diagnosed, the biggest worry that you have is that you now got a mountain in front of you. And that mountain is a legitimate thing for you to worry about, because it's real. It's, hold on just a second. It's a real mountain. And I don't say that lightly, and I'm not trying to create any more anxiety for you, but it's a mountain of new things that you're going to have to learn, and it's new ways to navigate what you thought you were going to have to do. So, when you're graced with having a child, you immediately start thinking of all of the wonderful things that they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and you impose all of these ideas for what your future looks like. And then when you hit a speed bump where somebody tells you to turn left and you were never anticipating turning left, you're going down a path that you just don't understand. And it's a new mountain. It's a mountain of information. So I hope to ease people's worries when it comes to what that looks like. That's not the roadmap that they had planned, and it's not the roadmap that any of us planned, but it is a lot easier to navigate when you have people that care and love you and want to see you succeed. In large part, that's what the special needs community is a band of parents that love one another, even though you don't know each other. You just know that they're walking the same journey and the same walk as you, and you want to see them successful. Don't get me wrong. There's parents that aren't quite as lovely as what I'm describing, but for the large part, they are. They're just ready in their own way to try to pay it forward. It's almost like once you become a part of this secret club, you want, when other people come into it, you just want to tell them it's okay. It's going to be okay. You just breathe. With Lindsay and her story, she was such a bleak diagnosis for her, and for her to have come so far. It's important for people to understand that this is a real marathon. It is no joke, and it's not going to happen quickly. So I look at it, and she's over 6 years into it. No, she's more than that. She's more than 7 years into this. And I think when I initially started, I felt like I'm going to find an answer. I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to flip the switch and everything's going to be okay. And I sure hope that that's the case for some people. And I think that it is. I think some people do find solutions that work for them rather quickly, and they find great deal of success. We did when we changed her diet. But in the long part, it's a marathon. It's hard. You find one thing that might be working for you, and it takes you so far, and then you hit a plateau, and then you have to have the stamina to keep going. All along the way, you're questioning your every move. You're wondering if you're doing it right and if you're doing enough. And, you have the days where it's just really, really hard, where a teacher doesn't understand them well enough, or where somebody makes life a little bit harder than it needs to be. And on those days when it's really hard and it's really challenging, you're still an amazing parent, and they're still an amazing child. So go ahead, join the rest of us, cry in your car, cry in a parking lot. Understand that that's part of it, is to be upset that things are a little bit harder. But the joy that comes with it is incredible. It is one of the most sensational moments when you have waited for a child to be able to tell you that they love you for years and years, and that that it's not something that is just going to come easily. And when that happens, it is so, so wonderful. Or when a child can't walk or do a motor skill as well as the others, and they finally are able to achieve that. Those moments, we have to wait a lot longer for them sometimes, but they're the moments that it's all worth it for. We get to take so much more joy and so much more pride in that moment than anyone else, because we fought for it. And these kids, they're so special, and I feel like if you tap into their world, they really do understand more than you could ever imagine that they do. But they're happy in their world. It's when we try to make them fit into our world, that's when we have all of the conflict and the struggle. And so until they're able to fit into our world more and more, I challenge you to just enjoy theirs with them, and those small steps of what they're doing now and what they're going to do in the next month, or what they're going to do, and that they don't need to be compared to all the other people that are their age, or to their brother, or to their sister or cousin or anyone else, but just really appreciate the journey that they're on, and celebrate those moments. Don't cheat yourself out of them. Once they're able to do something, if they're able to walk late, don't say, oh my gosh, you're finally able to walk, now if I could get you to do this. No, like, enjoy that moment, because that moment is really, really powerful. You fought for that moment, enjoy it. So the long and short of it, I guess, in my world is, what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish kids being their very best, for them to feel healthy. We're trying to accomplish parents being able to find the joy along the way, and find the encouragement along the way, hearing the stories of inspiration and hope in order to get us through those darker or challenging days. We all have them, and that's completely natural and normal. And don't second guess yourself. If you're not doing as much as somebody else, that's okay. You're going to do it in your time. I will also encourage people, you take record really well of everything that you're trying, everything that you're doing. There are so many things to try and to do and to explore. Don't do all of them too quickly. So, focus in on the things that catch your attention. All of these kids are very different. I heard the mantra once that said, if you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. And I feel like that's really, really true. The fact is none of them behave identically. None of them have the same symptoms uniformly across the board. They all are very different kids. And so you're going to have to just follow your gut as a parent and look at it and decide, okay, if I'm looking at this and if I'm trying to weigh what our best next move is, and there's 200 options, pick the 2 that you think are going to suit you guys best. Try those, monitor them, see how they do. If you try too much stuff at once, you're never going to know what's working and what's not. You're also probably going to go broke pretty quickly. It's all really expensive in our side of the world. Talk to other parents, ask them what's working for them. I have found that as amazing as these doctors are, and they really are quite genius, they don't hold a candle to what a special needs parent might know, especially when it's your kid. And so don't be challenged by thinking, oh gosh, I have to follow what he's saying because he knows so much. No, you know your child very well. Please don't ever overlook your own instinct on that. But if there's 5 options and you think 2 of them are going to be the best thing, follow those 2 through. Ultimately, that's where we're going to be sitting at. I hope that you guys have some questions. I know I've run through things probably a little faster than I anticipated, but I want to show you our next parent workshop that's going to be coming up. Let's see if I can pull that up real quick. It'll be in September. So it's going to be in September. It's going to be Thursday nights. It's going to be in Longwood. Northland Church hosts the building for us to utilize, and typically they are able to provide childcare. I know some of the corona stuff that's happening right now might prohibit it the way that we've done it in the past, so I'm going to have to tell you to keep your eyes open for that. But we like to try to help parents be able to attend and take care of the kids if necessary. But it's here in Longwood, and you're very welcome to attend. I usually, there's the price for the attendance is a family package. So it's, the entire family is welcome to come. That's up to 4 adults. You just get one workbook that kind of guides you through the process, and it's $39. But we usually do some different discounts and such. So be on the lookout for that, or you can shoot me an email and let me know that you'd like to come and you want to do, you're looking for the discount code, and I'll make sure that I get that to you. The goal is to try to help parents. And if you know a parent that can't afford to attend, that's okay. We do scholarships also. So we're glad to work with those families and make them allow them to have the access to all the information as well. Just help them understand when it's happening. We've been recording the last couple of them in hopes for getting a DVD series out, allowing people that might not be able to leave their house at all, or might be in more rural areas that can't get into town, for them to be able to access it. So that's something that'll be coming in the next few weeks. Additionally, we have a new guide that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks that is it's a journal, a 365-day journal of keeping track of daily activities. It's kind of like a 5-day, or I'm sorry, not 5 days. It's a 5-minute moment where at the end of the day, you just kind of jot down what was eaten and what the sleep habits were and what their behavior was for the day. And it kind of keeps everything in check for you with weekly checks and quarterly reviews, and then an annual review of where you're standing on things. And with all of the doctors asking us to do that more and more, it's nice to be able to have a guide that you can kind of hand them. Say, this is our journal. This is what we've been marking and tracking. So, and if there's other ways that we can help parents, we want to. We continuously push ourselves to try to find ways to reach out. It was really wonderful during this COVID time that we were able to do what we called coffee talks. On Wednesday mornings, people from all over the country dialed into a Zoom call, and we just chatted about the things that were struggles, some of the things that were successes, and it was incredible because, the other parents, like I always say, they get it, and they really do. It's fun to talk to other parents that get it. And so we were just able to say, oh my gosh, what are you doing when you're trying to teach this lesson? Or how is this working out for you? And we'll probably continue to do something like that moving forward as well. So does anyone have, well, let's see here. One of the questions says, what has been the most profound therapy or service that you've used to help our family, our daughter and our family? I feel like the absolute best thing that worked for us was diet, first and foremost. And that's what we were tipped off on that very first day, was to change her diet. We moved to a gluten-free, dairy-free world. We moved to a gluten-free, dairy-free world, and it changed the world for us. So Lindsay was 3, and I was really skinny then because all she did was run and point and scream. And so I was chasing her all the time. But she had a very high pain threshold. She could fall down and scrape her knees, and her knees would be bloody and messy, and it wouldn't faze her at all. But within 2 weeks of us going gluten and dairy free, she walked across the living room floor and she stepped on a toy. And when she stepped on the toy, she turned around, she looked me dead in the eyes and she said, "Mommy, hurt me." And I went, "Oh my gosh, that's the trifecta." She just said, "Hurt me." Those are words. Like, she just identified with me. She looked me in the eyes and she called me mommy. And she felt pain, like, holy cow. And it was really exciting. I knew that we were onto something at that point. And, we didn't, you've got to understand that when I'm talking about our life story and Lindsay's story, we are not perfect. As a matter of fact, my mantra for 2020 is that we're not perfect. Like, we're so far from, we're perfectly imperfect, to be quite honest. But we didn't end up getting allergy testing for her for almost a year and a half to 2 years after that. Like, it was a long time and then we learned at that point that she was allergic to wheat, she was allergic to dairy, and to my surprise, she was allergic to tree nuts, which was a real hard thing for me to swallow since I was now giving her almond milk like 3 times a day. So, that's just part of the journey, is learning as you go. We are perfectly imperfect, but diet changed a lot for us. And having occupational therapy at an early age was really fantastic. We learned from our occupational therapist when Lindsay was 2 that she was left-handed. I don't know what that would have meant as time went on, but I'm sure it would have been more and more frustrating for her and for us if we kept putting everything in her right hand. But her occupational therapist just had insights that we weren't savvy on yet. And then ABA therapy was our success story in getting her fully potty trained. They're the ones that were able to work with her extensively. And so I like giving a lot of credit to the people that were really instrumental in our success story. And I would be remiss to not say this to you the same way I do to so many others. I'm not an expert. I am a mom. I am a mom that is trying her absolute hardest to get my child to be her best. And I have been so fortunate along the way to meet some of the most amazing people that you could ever imagine. And so I have a really, really cool Rolodex of people that are very smart, and they are incredibly kind and gracious with their time and helpful. Those people are the people that I try to connect the community with. And so I never want people to think, oh, I'm an expert. I'm not. I know a lot of people that are, though. Let's see here. What is your biggest challenge for your family, and have you addressed that challenge? Oh, hold on. I've missed part of that. Hold on just a second. Okay, so that's a good 2-parter. I'll start with the first part. Says, what is the biggest challenge for your family, and have you addressed that challenge? The biggest challenge, I think, has been I'm torn. There's a few different things. I think that the biggest challenge that I have is sibling wise. I have a son that is 2 years older than Lindsay, and I am very clear. I believe that God made him Lindsay's older brother because he's the most amazing boy, and he looks after her and he cares for her, and he helps her with things, and he plays with her, and he's incredible. But my challenge is always the worry that even though I think that this is making him a much more thoughtful person, and it's enriching his character and how he cares for other people in the world, I worry that he doesn't get quite as much attention as he should on different areas, or that we ask him to grow up a little bit faster than I want him to. And so I think that that's my personal biggest challenge. Lindsay's challenge has been finding the right teachers. If you haven't found the right teacher, don't stick with them. Just move on, because there are some really, really great teachers out there. And that's not me putting down a teacher. It's just that either a teacher has that skill and understanding, or they don't. It can be a wonderful person that just is the most incredible teacher you've ever seen, and kind and nourishing, but they understand a neurotypical mind really well, and they don't understand a special needs mind quite as well. And if you're trying to cram that square peg into that round hole, it's just not going to work, and it's going to leave you very frustrated. And we've had that experience a couple of times where we've had to realize and pull a ripcord. And when we've done that, your feelings are hurt and you're sad by it because you feel like somebody doesn't love your child enough or that they don't understand you well enough. But the very next picture in that storyline is that the next person does. And not only does the next person understand them really well, they're the one that was meant to teach them whatever that lesson is. And that story has repeated in our life more than once. I always tell people to go with their guts, but if you're feeling like you're forcing something too hard with a teacher, that's probably our biggest challenge. What advice would you give to parents when they get discouraged about lack of progress? So there's two things that happen in my mind. One, progress can be really, really slow, but once you have some progress, you get excited by that and you want that momentum to keep going. And that's when you start overlooking the gains that you've had. You know, you go, oh my gosh, they're making eye contact with me, or oh my gosh, they were able to say this word. And so now instantaneously you want them to have a whole conversation with you, or now you want them to be able to run and play with their brothers or sisters the way that you had originally, and you can't jump to the end. And so people get frustrated, I think, because that progress goes so slowly sometimes. But if you just focus in on each of the little steps along the way, if you just focus in on those achievements of being able to hold a spoon right, or being able to hold a pencil right, or even if they're only coloring circles or coloring lines, the fact that they're taking a pen or a crayon to paper and they're doing that and they're initializing, that's what you should be wanting to look into. If you've hit a plateau, we all hit plateaus. That's when you have to dig really, really deep and find the power to press on and to look for new answers and say, okay, we've extinguished all of these options. We need to look a little bit further. And that a lot of times comes from talking to other parents. So being transparent about where you're at, not trying to act like you've got it all together, is going to be your biggest win. Let's see here. Saw something. Hold on just a moment. I'm having a hard time scrolling this. Okay. What recommendations to help families with therapeutic and medical treatment funding, such as grant scholarships? So the workshops that we currently do are here in Central Florida, predominantly in Longwood, but we talk to people, gosh, we talk with people all over the country, and a lot of times there's things that apply here that apply other places. There are a couple different grants that I try to point people to look for. One of them is at taka.org. They have grants where they'll try to help people find some dollars to see doctors. A lot of the doctors in the autism world are called biomed. That just means that they're more natural approach of trying to heal things, but they don't take insurance, which makes them really expensive. So Taka will provide some funding for that if people apply. Another place is Thinking Moms Revolution. That's TMR, Thinking Moms Revolution. They provide a grant, usually of about $1,000, to help people for the first time when they're trying to find resources. And then let's see here. So scholarships we talk about are usually, so when we're talking about scholarships, so the grants are usually medical based. The scholarships are things that we can do in the state. So that's going to be the Garner Scholarship, that's going to be the McKay Scholarship. And talking about how those apply. If somebody's wanting to go to school in a public school and they're wanting to transition it over to a private school, then the McKay Scholarship is a wonderful, wonderful thing. That's what we personally have. It allows for a higher dollar value to be able to be awarded to the families, and it allows that child to utilize that money until the age of 22 or they graduate from high school, whichever comes first. The Garner Scholarships have a lot more flexibility. They just have a lower amount that they're, I think they peak out at 10,000 or roughly right about that. But if you're wanting to homeschool your child, or if you're wanting to have that control a little bit more on how you spend some funding on different therapies, then that's kind of the goal to go down. The scholarships they're funny, because it really, really depends on what your goal is for your child, on which path you should go down in order to find those dollars. Says, can you share more about the ministry and how we try to support religious leaders? Yes. So like I said, we've been very fortunate, and I will always say that we're very fortunate in our experience, but I feel like our relationship with God grew because of the path that we're on with our daughter. When she was in a Sunday school class, our church was good enough and thoughtful enough to already have an access ministry program in place. And so even though we chose a very large church that we were going to, and some of that was for the sake that you could come and go and nobody would really know, I mean, I was raised in a church family, and as we got older and you go to college and you get married, you don't go quite as often as you did when you were a child. You become what I understand the term is a CEO, a Christmas and Easter only part of attendees. And so my husband and I did that. And then when we had children, we wanted them to be exposed to the same church upbringing that we had. And when Lindsay needed somebody to assist her in Sunday school, and our church provided that, and there was somebody actually volunteering their time every Sunday morning in order to make sure that Lindsay had the full access to the ministry program and that she felt included in it, then you don't want to mess up somebody else's time. We start going every Sunday because we felt that that was the right thing to do. And when you start going every Sunday, not only do your children start to have a relationship with God, you start having a new relationship with God. And so I feel that it is really imperative for parents that have special needs children to be able to have access to churches. You want to be able to have the freedom of going and being able to have that time to hear and to reset yourself and refocus, but you also want to know that your child's taken care of. And if you can't know that your child is in good hands, then you can't allow yourself to have that moment or for them to have a spiritual path that they can embark on. So it's very important to us at Abilities that we're able to help work with churches and help them build programs. And we were supposed to have had our very first blueprint happen this June. And unfortunately, with the lack of travel and then with the financial burden that churches are holding right now, that it just didn't materialize that way. So we're working with them more one-on-one now on helping each of those churches that wanted to build programs understand what options are available to them and ways to do that. And we'll continue to do that. So if you know of a church or if you're wanting to build a program, let us know and we can give you all the tools or the guidance in order to help accomplish that. What is your best advice for parents to prepare transition and their child's future? And how do you stay optimistic about it? Oh my gosh. That's a tough question. Y'all are something, huh? So I'm an ostrich. I stick my head in the sand and I compartmentalize. And I go day by day as far as how I handle it personally. I try to plan for what's happening in our world now because I don't have the crystal ball of knowing what's going to happen in the future. So you try to be smart and plan for 2 courses of their life. One where they're completely able to function on their own and be sustainable on their own, and one where they may need help. And doing the Florida Med waiver will help them financially if they do need support services. And so I encourage people to try to sign up for the Florida Med waiver as early as possible because it's a long wait list and it's a process to get through. But otherwise, just focus on the here and now. So do your long-term goals, but you stay optimistic by looking at where we're at and continuing to look backwards at the trajectory of where you've been. It's impossible to read the future. And I think that that's where most of us have our darkest days, is when we're trying to read the future, when we worry about where our child will be in 5 years or where they're going to be in 10 years. And on those days, and I'm being completely honest, we all have the dark days where we worry. But I try to get myself to look back at where we've come from. Like, if I can make the same gains in 5 years that I've made in the last 5 years, then she's going to be great. And that's all I have to go off of. I hope that other people do that too. What tools and curriculum do you use to support your child's inclusion in the community. Ooh, y'all are smart. Y'all have done this once or twice. So since Lindsay was able to go from nonverbal to verbal, we haven't had to use any of the different tablets, which is a little bit comical to me because Lindsay sees friends of hers that do use tablets to talk. You know, they use the program where they program in what words they're saying. And she's such a technology nerd that she's tried to steal it before. And I remember her teachers being like, no, you can't steal that from your friend. That's their voice. So trying to get her not to take this from others is always an interesting. She's learned now not to, but early on that was funny to me. No, Lindsay, you can't take people's voices. But we haven't had too many challenges as far as we just have to let people know the expectations in advance. So if it's that she's going into a different classroom, or if she's going into a setting where she's going to have to learn something on her own, or, if she's starting a hip hop class or something of that nature, we just have to be very transparent with the teachers and with the people that are there and the instructors on where she is, how she learns, the best methods of her learning. And then people, as long as they're knowledgeable, they're able to adapt to being able to help her pretty well. We haven't had to overcome too much there. So let's see here. What are your favorite resources for information, go-to places online and in person about parenting? So this is kind of tricky, but I'm going to tell you to go to Facebook. And that's such a scary thing to do these days. Everybody's so judgmental and opinionated and mean on Facebook and social media right now. But not everyone is. And there are really good groups on Facebook if you find the right one. So you go into one group and people are acting snotty or defeated, or they're whiny or they're gripey. That's not the group for you. You need to keep moving. You can exit stage left from that group and you can move on to the one that that seems more fitting, more optimistic, more uplifting, and is challenging themselves to be their best too. Because I'm telling you, these parents are so darn smart that they're the ones that you really, really want to talk to. And you can throw a question out there. I mean, man, there was a group, I'll have to remember the name of it, and by all means, you guys can email me after this if you have any questions, and I'll give you as many names as I can. But they were just really smart. They were wicked smart. And you could ask a question about anything, a supplement or a diet question, or, a behavior issue. And all of a sudden you would get answers flooding in from not just your local community, but from all over the world. You'd have an answer from England or Australia about how they answered something. And that can be somewhat overwhelming when all of their answers are things that you don't understand. And you're finding that you're getting your doctorate at looking things up. But it's very empowering to know that all of those answers are just at your fingertips. And I really encourage those type of groups because once you've been affected from having somebody guide you, you want to guide others. And that's pretty much what those groups do. Just don't go to the wrong ones. I'm telling you, you'll see them and they'll stand out like a sore thumb to you when somebody's just wanting to gripe about the way that the world is. I think that the world can always use improvement in different things, but griping about it doesn't help me or my child get any better. I want to be in a group where people are aimed at us being healthier and happier and being able to embark and do things to our best abilities. But that, I think that I missed a question, so I'm going to scroll back up for just a second. Oh yeah, this was good. It says, with the pandemic, parents have been pushed to homeschool special needs children with little support. What are your favorite homeschool resources? It was really challenging for us. It was challenging for us because I didn't know how they were teaching her things in the classroom. And so all of a sudden I was being tasked with her learning and expanding on her knowledge base. And I didn't know how they were teaching them to understand and to spell sight words. I was doing it a different method than what her teacher did. And I was certain for the first several weeks, if not for the first month, that I was doing more damage than good. But ultimately, we ended up finding a balance where her teacher was online with us a good bit, and she would read them stories and she would show different things, and then we were just able to do the same pattern back. The thing that I feel like kids miss the most when they're homeschooled, and it's not, so I say that with an asterisk afterwards, because I believe in homeschooling. I think homeschooling is wonderful. And what everybody did for the last 3 months was not homeschooling. Homeschooling takes a lot of field trips, and you're out and you're learning in the community. And so being in isolation is not what homeschooling is. But if you're going to be isolated in that fashion and you're not able to get out, then there needs to be virtual friendships and virtual learning opportunities, things with music, music therapy, or allowing the student to be able to talk to one another. You just have to give them as much normalcy as that they're used to on that. So let's see here. If I scroll a little bit more, I saw something popped up. Okay, what strategies do you employ to prepare for a successful education planning meetings, an IEP? Wow. So a person going into an IEP for the very first time should know that they're no joke, that you end up having a lot of IEP armor that you wear. The first time I walked into an IEP, I sat down, and I believe that there were 11 or 12 people sitting at that table with me. So there's me, the parent, and then the teacher and the teacher's assistant and the principal and the guidance counselor and the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, and a couple other random people. And all of them are there, usually with, very good intentions of wanting your child to be their best. But man, once you start hearing all of your child's shortcomings from one person after another person after another, it is so defeating, and it hurts, and they're only trying to say, well, she needs help with speech on this and she needs help with OT on this, but it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And so the first thing that you have to do in order to be successful in an IEP meeting, and this sounds really elementary, but it's so important, is prepare yourself mentally to know that those people are trying to help you. They're trying to help you to their best ability, and not to take it personally. I think that when I talk about the times that parents end up crying in their cars, it's usually after an IEP meeting, because you just feel so defeated that there's so much work still to be done. But if you're not feeling that way, and you're on the opposite side of the table and you're fighting for your kid and they're not telling you that they need additional help, that's one of those times where you, as the parent in the situation, have to fight for your kid to get whatever assistance that you need. So if you're going in and they're all trying to help you, that's wonderful. Prepare yourself emotionally, because it's going to be a draining day. If you're going in to fight for your child, if you're going in to say, hey, my kid needs additional services on something, do not let anybody stop you. Ask them, what do you need in order for this to be accomplished? Ask them straightforward, what needs to take place? How do I document this so that we can make this move forward? Bring papers of your own, even for them to sign. It's quite often in an IEP meeting that they ask you to sign things, but if you're in for a challenge, turn the tables on them. And have your own form in advance that you're saying, I want to implement these services for my child, and these are the things you're going to do in order for that to happen, and I need your signature that this will be the date that we follow back up on it. And hold them accountable, because you're allowed to do that too. It's always kind of scary to think that you're going up against the system, but the system's supposed to work for you, and it's supposed to work for your kid. And so don't shy away or be intimidated by it. And if you need the pep talk in advance, call one of your friends, call one of another special needs parent, call me. I'll be glad to give you a pep talk and say, go for it. There are services that people use, and I think that those are advantageous. I think that they're smart to do that. But if you have any challenges in mind, just I say start digging and start asking. But man, I'm so glad that you guys asked me some questions, because I know that I had run through some of it rather quickly, and I didn't want any of you to be shorted on at least some of my thoughts, as useful as they may be or not be for you. I did want to give one more slide. I wanted to show you this last one, if it'll work for me. I just wanted you to have my, oh heaven, there we go. I just wanted you to have my direct email address. And I firmly do believe that you have this, that you're going to be able to prevail and do well. But if you have questions for me, I am completely accessible. I find a lot of joy in talking to parents and helping them navigate things. And it's never a burden. It's always kind of an honor to be asked. So if you have questions and I don't have the answer, I am so glad to thumb through our Rolodex of people that might and be able to give you some answers on that.